This is an informational video on the African American Civil Rights Grant Program from the National Park Service. This is intended for potential applicants and those interested in learning more about this grant program. The National Park Service's African American Civil Rights Grant Program, or AACR, will document, interpret, and preserve sites and stories that tell the full history of the African American struggle to gain equal rights from the transatlantic slave trade onward. Congress appropriated $21,750,000 in fiscal year 22 for this program, and it will fund a broad range of projects, including physical preservation and history projects. And the legislative authority and other authority are listed below here. Funding for this program is provided from the Historic Preservation Fund. Established in 1976, the fund, or the HPF, is the funding source for preservation assistance grants to the 50 states, the District of Columbia, the 5 territories, and the 3 freely associated states of Micronesia, in addition to more than 200 tribes, more than 2,000 local governments, and hundreds of nonprofits. The source of the funding for the Historic Preservation Fund is Outer Continental Shelf oil and gas lease revenue, not tax dollars. The National Park Service is now accepting applications for the African American Civil Rights Grant Program. Applications must be submitted online through grants.gov, and the funding opportunities are listed below. And note that there are separate applications or notice of funding opportunity numbers. For history, it ends with 647, and for preservation, the more construction and bricks and mortar projects, ends with 648. And note that the deadline to apply this year is November 8th of 2022. So the primary difference between the two different applications and sources of funding under the program are that history projects are more the storytelling, the documentation, the research, interpretation and educational materials. So this includes oral histories, conservation of collections, exhibits, those types of educational activities. Preservation, on the other hand, involves architecture, construction, historic structure reports, plans and specifications. So think about physical preservation of structures and buildings. Eligible applicants for the program are state, territory, county, and local governments, and that does include certified local governments, Indian tribes that meet the federal U.S. Code definitions here, also Native Hawaiian organizations that meet that definition, and nonprofit organizations. And it's important to note that you do need to have nonprofit status or tax exempt status, but a 501c3 is not necessarily a requirement. You just need to be tax exempt. For history projects, you can apply. The funding range is $15,000 to $75,000 is the maximum. For preservation projects, we will award $75,000 minimum to a maximum of $750,000. And please note that we do also have a separate category for pre-preservation work only. That is also $15,000 to $75,000. So if you are new to a project, if you are just working with a building for the first time and you really don't have a clear understanding yet of what that building needs, please consider applying simply to have an architect or an engineer assess the building and its conditions. Maybe you want to have plans and specifications drawn up or a historic structures report. So please note that you can apply for up to $75,000 to really kind of equip yourself with the information and understanding of what that building needs. And note that for all of our grants under the African American Civil Rights Grant Program, matching funds or non-federal matching funds are not required, but we do see it as a competitive factor if you are able to provide some matching funds and provide evidence of local support, for example. So what are the eligible resources? For preservation, when we're talking about bricks and mortar work and the physical preservation of buildings and structures, the resources must be listed in the National Register of Historic Places or determined eligible for listing at the time that you apply. And to get a determination of eligibility, you would need to contact your state historic preservation office, because we do need a written determination from them that they have determined that the property is eligible if it's not already listed on the National Register. So the property can be individually listed, it can be contributing to a district, or it could also be individual or part of the historic landmark district, National Historic Landmark District. So please contact your state historic preservation office to confirm that your property is either listed or eligible for listing, or begin that process. So not only does the property need to be listed in the National Register, that nomination must address the property's role and significance in the African American civil rights movement. So if a current nomination does not include this association, the nomination must be amended during the grant period. So make sure that not only the property is listed, but its associations with African American civil rights are highlighted in that nomination. And note that these are eligible costs that you can budget to the grant if you do need to amend the nomination or draft an entirely new one. So grant-funded activities include preservation work, such as we've talked about and mentioned before, bricks and mortar work, the physical preservation of structures. And up to 20% of that award may be used for pre-preservation work. So that could include material analysis, such as mortar analysis, a historic structure report, archaeological survey, architectural drawings and specifications, all of the things that you will need, in order to do a good quality preservation work project. Eligible projects under the history category. There are 4 choices, so we ask you to determine which one is the best fit. It may kind of spill over into other areas, but please choose the one that's most applicable. So we have survey and planning, research and documentation, interpretation and education, and collections conservation. When developing the budget for your project, make sure you keep in mind items and expenditures that cannot be funded through the Historic Preservation Fund. So we've provided a list of some of those activities that cannot be supported, such as new construction, acquisition. Just be sure that the focus is the existing building and what improvements, what preservation activities will help keep that property viable. All work must meet the Secretary of the Interior standards, and this means compliance with Section 106 and NEPA as well. And those are reviews that the Park Service will do prior to the start of work. So make sure that you have approvals in place and that you've submitted your plans and specifications to the Park Service so that we can review and approve them before any work starts on the project. We also ask that you competitively select your consultants, contractors, architects, whomever may be working on the project, and the Park Service also does want to approve their qualifications and make sure they have relevant experience that will benefit your project. A preservation agreement or covenant is required as part of the grant program, and the duration or the time of that agreement is based on the amount of the federal award. So you can see the schedule here based on the amount of the grant, the minimum number of years that agreement must be drafted for. If you take a look at our website, we have more information on agreements and covenants and also a template that can be customized for your project, or if you want to take a look at that and see what those standard provisions are and what types of requirements come with the covenant or easement. Funding is provided on a reimbursement basis, meaning that you can draw down funds as needed through the U.S. Treasury's ASAP system. Of course, those expenditures need to be valid and approved and allowable by your Park Service grant manager. And note that we do have some latitude on the reimbursement structure of the grant. So if you have an invoice, for example, that is for goods or services that have been rendered, you can draw down the funds to pay that expense without having to incur the expense up front. When applications are reviewed by our panel, they are looking at 4 criteria, and they are each worth 25 points each. Be certain to look and read carefully through the notice of funding opportunity and make sure you're addressing all of the questions and points of information that are being asked under each of the criteria. Registration in SAM.gov is a requirement for applications. Make sure that you are registered in SAM as soon as possible if you're interested in applying. And in that registration process, you will be issued a unique entity identifier for your organization. And so that also is a requirement. You need to have that unique entity identifier, or UEI, which recently replaced the DUNS number. All application materials must be included. Everything that's listed in the notice of funding opportunity must be submitted. So if your application is complete, it will not be considered for funding because we need all of the components that are provided and listed in grants.gov. Here's a list of application materials that can be found in the grants.gov posting for this funding opportunity. Be sure to fill out and sign all of the standard forms. For example, you may feel like some of them simply don't apply to your project, and that's fine. They may not, so just be sure to submit them anyway and make sure you're reading through the different assurances and completing all of these attachments and worksheets that are so critical to a reviewer who will be assessing your application and project. So applications, again, must be submitted through grants.gov. The deadline is November 8th of 2022. And you can send any and all questions to stlpg@nps.gov, and that stands for State, Tribal, Local Plans and Grants Division. And below that is the website address where you can learn more about the program and get a link to apply. So thank you for listening, and we appreciate your interest in this program. Thank you.